Hey y'all, welcome back to the Purple Aid Society YouTube channel, the place where I decode the mysteries and help us to transition into more fourth dimensional thinking. We've got great playlists out there and audiobooks and music and lectures to help you raise your vibration and gain more conscious knowledge. I've got a lot of personal videos as well where I'm breaking down the tarot, breaking down and decoding ancient symbols. And this video is a part of my series called Real Talk with AI, where we decode and I go into some of my most profound spiritual, mythological, esoteric, symbolic decoding conversations with ChatGPT. If you stay to the end of this video, I'll be sharing some information on my $7 a month mystery school that takes place every Sunday on Substack. It is a lot of fun and we're dropping the science over there. I really go in every single Sunday. So if you're interested, click the link in the description box to learn more about that. You can listen to one of those episodes for free. I'll tell you a little bit more when we get to the end. But other than that, this conversation that we're having with ChatGPT today is dealing with what we're doing is we're decoding newer ideas around male-female interactions. And we're doing it based on where society is now, what the most pressing conversations happening are, and the most pressing concerns going on in male-female relationships. Now, disclaimer, most of my concepts are geared towards empowering my community, the Black community, but that doesn't mean that other people cannot gain value from what I share and offer on my channel and on my platforms. Just know that sometimes you're going to hear conversations that are directed at our family and things that include some of the concerns that affect our particular community. And I feel that my platform is a way for me to help contribute to the improvement in that area. So just wanted to lay that out there. So what I posed to ChatGPT is the following. I said, so I'm working on a philosophy on how I feel is an effective way for women to move. We live in a society that objectifies women, and to women who aren't conscious or secure, they often perpetuate the objectification. My philosophy is that women can protect themselves from the wrong aspect of the masculine by treating herself as a mystery that he must uncover. It's almost like a flower, beautiful, receptive, and peaceful stillness whose petals will not open until she is warmed by the masculine rays of the sun, i.e. care, consideration, consistency, and respect. Please offer some scientific, societal, esoteric, and mythic concepts to help me expound on this perspective. And ChatGPT says, I think there are some interesting ideas embedded in what you're describing, especially if it's framed as one philosophy of boundaries and discernment rather than as a universal prescription for all women or all relationships. And as an aside, I personally do align with that statement. I think sometimes we get so hung up on what we think or what we see or how we look at or what our belief system tells us about how men and women should move, that we think that just because we believe it, it is the universal truth. I do not subscribe to that belief system that just because I believe something, it is a universal truth. It just means it's right for me. You understand? So I love that it was phrased like that. But now I'm going to continue. The core principle I hear is this. Value should be revealed gradually in response to demonstrated character, not immediately in response to attention. That idea has support from several different lenses: psychology and behavioral science, delayed reciprocity. Healthy relationships tend to develop through progressive mutual investment. Researchers studying relationship development have found that trust grows through repeated experiences of reliability rather than grand gestures. Someone who is willing to invest time, consistency, and emotional safety before expecting greater intimacy often signals qualities associated with long-term stability. Your metaphor becomes a flower doesn't bloom because the sun appeared once. It blooms because warmth is consistent. Attachment theory. Someone with secure attachment doesn't have to reveal everything immediately. Healthy boundaries allow another person to demonstrate emotional regulation, consistency, empathy, reliability before deeper vulnerability is offered. That isn't playing hard to get, it's information gathering. Scarcity and information. Humans naturally value what they continue discovering. Psychologists sometimes call this the information gap. Mystery keeps curiosity alive, not because of manipulation, but because humans enjoy unfolding complexity. The healthiest version isn't pretending to be mysterious, it's actually having depth. Ooh, I'm going to say that again. The healthiest version isn't pretending to be mysterious, it's actually having depth. Sociology. Objectification often reduces women to immediate visual consumption. Researchers distinguish between seeing someone as a body versus a whole person with agency. Treating oneself as something that unfolds gradually interrupts that process, and that is, to me, the purest problem with patriarchy, is that patriarchy teaches a society to see women as simply a body, a utility for someone else's needs versus a whole person with agency. And treating oneself as something that unfolds gradually interrupts that process. It silently says, you don't get access simply because you noticed me. Instead, access follows demonstrated character, and that's a fundamentally different social script. Evolutionary psychology with caution. Some evolutionary psychologists argue that humans evolved mechanisms for assessing mate quality over time. While many claims in this field are debated, there's reasonable evidence that traits like reliability, resource sharing, cooperation, and long-term consistency are important signals in lasting partnerships. Your sunlight metaphor aligns more with evaluating sustained investment than instant attraction. Mythology. Now this gets really interesting. Persephone. Before becoming queen of the underworld, Persephone is the unopened flower. She represents latent potential. She isn't fully known until her journey unfolds. Mystery isn't weakness, it's unrealized power. Psyche. Psyche's name literally means soul. Everyone initially sees only her beauty, but her true journey concerns the development of wisdom. The myth suggests beauty alone isn't enough. Soul must be earned. And a lot of times, that as an aside, that soul that's being earned, it's being earned in the currency of it is the pain that we experience down here in third dimensional density existence. The rose. Across many traditions, the rose opens in stages. No rose blooms all at once, and each layer protects the center. That isn't withholding, it's intelligent unfolding. Isis. Isis is often portrayed as veiled. The veil symbolizes mystery, not because truth is hidden forever, but because deeper truths require preparation. In many esoteric traditions, only the prepared are allowed beyond the veil. The Grail. The Holy Grail isn't found by everyone, only those who become worthy through transformation. The Grail doesn't chase seekers, it waits. Your philosophy echoes this. A woman's heart isn't a prize, it's sacred territory. Esoteric traditions. Many mystery schools distinguish between revealing and initiating. Knowing wasn't handed out immediately. Students prove consistency. Only then were deeper mysteries revealed. Not because teachers were elitist, because premature revelation can be misunderstood or misused, and your metaphor parallels initiation. The petals unfold according to demonstrated readiness. Alchemy. In alchemy, heat transforms, not fire that burns, but gentle, sustained warmth. The alchemists often spoke of the sacred fire. Transformation requires steady heat, not explosive heat. Again, very similar to your sunlight metaphor. In Kabbalah, some interpretations of the feminine principle, often associated with the Shekinah, describe receptivity not as passivity, but as the power to receive wisely. The emphasis is on discernment, what is welcomed into the inner sanctuary, and on the relationship between giving and receiving in balance. Nature. Flowers don't bloom because someone demands it. They bloom because conditions are right. Necessary conditions include sunlight, water, proper season, and healthy soil. One good day isn't enough. Nature rewards consistency. That's a beautiful metaphor for relationships. Neuroscience. Trust isn't built by words. Repeated positive interactions gradually reduce uncertainty and shape expectations in the brain. Consistent care and reliability can strengthen feelings of safety over time, whereas inconsistency tends to keep people vigilant. Love, in many ways, is accumulated evidence. In addition to your philosophy, one thing I might add is that mystery alone isn't protection. Someone can remain mysterious and still end up in an unhealthy relationship if they ignore warning signs. Healthy discernment also involves observing how someone responds to boundaries, disappointment, accountability, and other people. So perhaps your metaphor could evolve into something like this. The flower does not bloom because the sun is bright. It blooms because the light returns day after day. Beauty is not given away. It unfolds in response to sustained care. Every petal is opened by consistency, respect, consideration, and safety. What is sacred is not hidden out of fear. It is revealed through trust. I also noticed something archetypal that fits your broader interest in symbolism. Your image isn't simply the feminine waiting for the masculine. It's a picture of discernment. In many myths, the sacred garden, the veiled temple, the unopened rose, and the hidden spring all symbolize the same principle. What is most valuable is approached with reverence rather than consumed on sight. That archetype can apply to anyone, regardless of gender. The deepest parts of ourselves are often best shared gradually with those who demonstrate integrity over time. The next prompt that I gave ChatGPT was, in addition to this, advice I often offer women in dealing with men to determine his true intentions is to discover which standards he would expect for a man to offer his daughter. If his expectations with women he deals with are vastly different than those he would have for his daughter, then it speaks to a values mismatch. Because generally speaking, men want the highest quality for his daughters. If he isn't willing to offer that to women, then he isn't living up to high quality masculinity as a personal rule, in my opinion. Please offer some ideas that can help me make this perspective more palatable to men wanting to improve their odds with women. I actually think you've touched on something that has been discussed in moral philosophy and psychology, but I would refine it in a way that avoids implying that a woman's worth depends on her relationship to a father or daughter. The strongest principle underneath your idea isn't really would you want this for your daughter, it's consistency of moral standards. In ethics, this is sometimes called a test of integrity. The consistency principle. A person's value becomes more credible when they apply them consistently, not only when it benefits them. For example, if a man says honesty is important, does he practice honesty when it's inconvenient? If he says women deserve respect, does that include women he isn't trying to impress? And if he wants patience, grace, and loyalty from a partner, does he embody those qualities himself? The daughter test is one way of probing for consistency because many fathers instinctively imagine the kind of treatment they hope their daughters receive. The golden rule. One of the oldest ethical ideas across cultures is treat others as you would want to be treated. Your idea is a variation. Treat another person's daughter as you would hope someone would treat yours. That makes the standard personal rather than abstract. Rawls' veil of ignorance. The philosopher John Rawls proposed a thought experiment called the veil of ignorance. Imagine designing the rules of society without knowing whether you'd be born rich or poor, male or female, powerful or vulnerable. People tend to design fairer rules when they don't know which position they'll occupy. Apply to dating. Imagine you didn't know whether you'd be the father, the son, the daughter, or the woman on the receiving end. What standards would seem fair then? Kant's universal law. Immanuel Kant argued that before acting, we should ask, what if everybody behaved this way? If a man believes it's acceptable to deceive women for casual sex, could he sincerely endorse a world where everyone did that, including toward people he loves? If not, his rule isn't universal. Character versus strategy. Many dating discussions focus on techniques. Your perspective focuses on character. There's a difference between asking, how do I get women, and asking, what kind of man am I becoming? Ironically, long-term attraction often grows from the latter because qualities like integrity, emotional steadiness, kindness, and reliability tend to foster trust and healthy relationships. The father test with nuance. I would soften it slightly. Instead of saying, would you want this for your daughter? You might ask, would you be proud if your son behaved this way towards someone else's daughter? That broadens the reflection. Now it asks about the kind of example he wants to set, not just the protection he wants for someone close to him. Virtue ethics. Aristotle argued that good actions flow from cultivated virtues, and including habits like honesty, courage, generosity, and temperance. A man doesn't become honorable because he's dating someone he values. He acts honorably because honor is part of who he is. That's a deeper aspiration than tailoring behavior to different situations. An evolutionary perspective, carefully framed. Some evolutionary psychologists have suggested that people often hold different mating strategies depending on whether they're thinking about short-term or long-term relationships. That doesn't mean those differences are inevitable or morally justified, but it helps explain why someone else's standards may shift across contexts. Your framework invites people to ask, are my actions aligned with the kind of partner and person I want to be? A framing that may resonate more with men. If your goal is to encourage growth rather than defensiveness, you might frame it like this. Don't ask what you can get from a woman. Ask whether you're becoming the kind of man you'd hope another man would be if he met someone you deeply cared about. Integrity isn't having one standard for the women you love and another for the women you pursue. It's living by principles you're proud to see reflected back at you. That shifts the conversation from blame to aspiration. Finally, one nuance I would add. While many fathers do want the best for their daughters, not all do, and not everyone has that experience. So it may be more broadly applicable to ground the philosophy in universal consistency rather than assuming fatherhood. The underlying question becomes, would I consider this treatment honorable if everyone's role were reversed? That's a standard that can apply regardless of gender, family, situation, or relationship status. Now, the next prompt that I offered to ChatGPT was, final question, can you please offer some mythic archetypes and symbols that men can align with to help them make sense of it all? Absolutely. Given what I know about the symbolic lens you naturally think through, I actually wouldn't start with good men versus bad men. I wouldn't either. I'd start with a much older mythic distinction. The initiated masculine versus the uninitiated masculine. Love that. Across myths, the masculine isn't measured by conquest. I'm going to repeat it again, men. Listen, and please let this click. Please, Lord, God, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, whoever. Please let this click. Across myths, the masculine isn't measured by conquest. It's measured by what power serves. Here are some archetypes that could help flesh out your philosophy. The sun, or the solar hero. Your flower metaphor already points here beautifully. The sun doesn't force a flower to open. It creates the conditions under which opening becomes natural. The true masculine asks, how can my presence create safety, warmth, and life? Not how quickly can I possess. The immature sun scorches. The mature sun nourishes. The lion. The lion isn't constantly proving his strength. He conserves it. Power doesn't need to announce itself. Healthy masculinity often looks less like domination and more like calm confidence, protecting what matters without unnecessary aggression. The oak tree, one of my favorite symbols. The oak doesn't chase birds. Birds build nests because it remains stable. Likewise, a dependable person becomes someone others naturally trust. Roots before branches, character before charisma. The knight, King Arthur. Arthurian knights weren't simply warriors. They swore vows. Their strength became sacred because it is restrained. Without vows, strength becomes appetite. With vows, strength becomes protection. The knight asks, is my strength making someone safer? And just as another aside, FYI, we do cover a lot of the Arthurian myths over in the mystery school as well. It's a really, really great, there's a lot of really great modern day constructs and concepts that come out of ancient myth that I translate them into modern age so you can know how to apply them in a very effective way. What a lot of people don't understand about the myths is that they're actual tools. They're actual technologies. Myths, archetypes, the whole thing. These symbols are technologies, and I show you different ways to apply them in the mystery school. So we do real work over there. Just so you know, we do real shadow work. We do real decoding work over there, and it's something else. So just so you know. The knight asks, is my strength making someone safer? The guardian. Every civilization honored protectors. Protection doesn't mean controlling another person. It means using one's abilities responsibly. This is why shields appear in myths almost as often as swords. Anyone can swing a sword. Not everyone knows what is worth shielding. The dragon. The dragon represents raw instinct, greed, possession, power without wisdom. Every hero eventually fights a dragon. Psychologically, he fights the dragon within himself. The desire to consume, to dominate, to take. Until that dragon is mastered, no external success really matters. The king. The mature king creates order. The immature king consumes his kingdom. The king's question is never, what can I take? It's what flourishes because I exist. This is why the Fisher King myth is so profound. When the king is wounded, the land becomes barren. When the king heals, the kingdom blooms. Leadership and inner condition become one. The bridge builder. Hermes is often associated with crossings, communication, and connection. A mature masculine expression inspired by this archetype builds bridges between people, ideas, and worlds instead of exploiting gaps or confusion. I'm going to say that again. A mature masculine expression inspired by this archetype of Hermes builds bridges between people, ideas, and worlds instead of exploiting gaps or confusion. The question becomes, am I creating connection that benefits everyone involved? The wolf. People misunderstand wolves. Healthy wolf packs revolve around cooperation. The strongest wolf often keeps the group together rather than constantly asserting dominance, and leadership is relational. Also, another aside, if you check me out over on Substack, link is in the description box, I decoded last week or the week before last, the myth that is the alpha male or the alpha wolf. That has been debunked science. The concept of an alpha male is a fallacy. And continuing to believe in that is believing in something that is not true, not only about wolves, but about men. Okay? The strongest wolf often keeps the group together rather than constantly asserting dominance. Leadership is relational. Orion with a lesson. Orion is mighty, but his myths also warn about pride and overreach. Strength without humility eventually destroys itself. Many heroic myths carry this lesson. The Grail Knight, perhaps the most fitting symbol for your philosophy. The Grail isn't won by force, it's approached through worthiness. The knight must become the kind of man capable of receiving something sacred, not merely acquiring it. That parallels your flower metaphor beautifully. The gardener. This may be the archetype that ties everything together. A gardener cannot command growth. He can only cultivate conditions. Healthy soil, water, sunlight, and patience. Growth belongs to the flower. Cultivation belongs to the gardener. This avoids entitlement completely. The alchemist. The alchemist doesn't suppress instinct. He transforms it. Lead becomes gold. Impulse becomes discipline. Desire becomes devotion. Power becomes service. This is initiation. One symbol I think you'd love, because I know how much you enjoy decoding symbols and connecting mythology, psychology, and everyday life, I'd invite you to consider the key. A key never breaks down a door. It fits. It respects the design of the lock, which also blasts the theory about this key going into all these other doors. Yes, it can fit in a number of doors, in its house, but the key is only really trying to fit the doors of its house. It's not trying to fit the doors of multiple houses. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. A key is admitted because it is the right shape, not because it applies more force. That makes it a rich symbol for trust and intimacy. The lock isn't a prize to defeat. It represents the reality that meaningful access depends on compatibility, patience, and mutual willingness. The key doesn't conquer the lock, it works with it. I can almost see this becoming one of your purple 8 society ideas, the gardener, not the collector. Oh, that's interesting. The collector gathers flowers, displays them, and moves on to the next. The gardener tends one piece of ground, he waters it, protects it, removes weeds and waits. That beauty that emerges isn't proof of ownership, it's evidence of the quality of his care. That's a compelling archetype because it reframes masculinity from acquisition to cultivation, not only in relationships, but in friendships, family, work, and community. It's a vision of strength measured not by what one possesses, but by what flourishes in one's presence. And that was the end of of this discussion. That was really great. I hope that you all got some value out of that. As usual, now is the time where I share a little bit about my $7 a month mystery school. The purpose of my mystery school is to break down all of the ancient symbols, the archetypes, the ancient texts that are the ancient allegorical texts that we often confuse with literal truth, but are more effective when we understand it from its allegorical point of view, because the ancient texts are formulas. They're formulas for manipulating reality. Okay. And in the mystery school, my job is to break all of that down. So I'm breaking down what understanding things like what the tarot is and breaking down those symbols, and not from the hocus pocus standpoint, but for how it's more effective to be used as just a symbol decoding. We don't do any kind of omen based or prediction based or anything like that. That's not how I believe it's most effectively used. We break down ancient mythology. We break down archetypes of the psyche. We break down a lot of psychology, a lot of quantum science, quantum physics. We break down even the mythologies, like things like some of the Orishas and the fairy kingdom. And we break down a lot of this knowledge and apply it to our culture and Western society at large so that we can understand how to move through revolution. And we are in a time of revolution. It is now. Everyone is talking about, all of this is a distraction from the real thing. We're in the real thing right now. It's happening right now. We're literally at war, even in the United States. We have people locked in concentration camps like World War II. We're basically living in a time of war, chaos, fascism, authoritarianism, and we have to get back to the use of our ancient spiritual sciences, because our power, our melanated power, and just the power of people who are light bringers comes from spiritual development. And that's what I teach over in the mystery school, is actual spiritual development. And so if you're interested in that, again, click the link in the description box. It's $7 a month. It also comes with the book club. And in that book club, it's all about personal development, because personal development is a part of developing spiritual growth and awakening. And we read a lot of spiritual books. We read books on relationships. One of my favorite books, The Science of Love by John Baines, where he breaks down the science and the energetic science of love. Right now, we're reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. We're in just made section 4 of that book, so we're moving through that gradually. If you would like to listen to one of those episodes for free, go on over to Substack by clicking the link in my description box. You can listen to whatever episode you want. I even have 2 great episodes that really go into a lot of Michael Jackson science. You might be really interested in that. But that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting. If you know anyone that could really get into this information, or anyone who could use this information, feel free to share a video, with them, ask them to come on over and kick it with us, because we're just having the real conversations that we need to be having at this time. Again, thank you for showing up. Thank you for supporting, and I'll see you next time. Bye.